Britain's 2 million veterans need our support. We honour those who fought to keep our nation safe by keeping our promises to them and by ensuring them and their families are looked after. Government helps with medical care and financial support, but how does an injured veteran rebuild their life, and who supports their families? My friend Johno Lee lost his leg when an IED exploded beneath him while serving in Afghanistan. At 21, his army career was over and his life had been changed forever.
The vehicle got completely blown up. I was thrown out of the vehicle into a minefield, and then I had an hour and 45 minutes in a minefield bleeding to death on my own, and that's a wait for help. And it was unbelievable because you are literally just in your head. So I was in and out of consciousness. I realised very, very early on that I was probably dying at that stage. I had literally the vehicle that I was in was behind me on its side. My boss and the driver was in screaming at me, shouting at me. They couldn't get to me. I started crawling towards the vehicle trying to get help, and there was about 2 foot away from my head a landmine, so there was another landmine away from my head. So it literally, we just sat there and we're speaking to each other, and then in and out of consciousness again, and then we realised something was seriously in trouble. And then I worked out very quickly that my knee was at a right angle to my foot, my bones were penetrating through my right hand side of my leg, there was a hole the size of a fist coming through my foot, and I was bleeding out, I was dying. I didn't tell my boss or anybody how much difficulty I was in, because I didn't want them to send anybody to me because we were in a real tough situation. So I managed to get a bandage and tourniquet my leg with a bandage. I managed to take morphine, and literally I was in agony. I mean, the worst pain I've ever been in. And then it took them, like I said, an hour and 45 minutes. They managed to get EOD and that landed a helicopter in, and then somebody had to literally come with a mine detector and come and get me. They managed to get to me after an hour and 45 minutes, and then all hell broke. Like, it said, literally the EOD guy got to me and said, if we don't move this guy now, he's dead. Like, I was in a bad state. They managed to drag me onto a helicopter, onto a Chinook that literally landed in the minefield to get me, risked lives to save mine. And then my heart stopped on the helicopter, so they had to bring me back. Then they flew me into Camp Bastion, that was the military camp at the time, that was one of the best hospitals in the world at the time. They sustained me, managed to keep my leg in one piece, because supposedly I threatened the doctor and said, if you take my leg, I'll hunt you down and kill you. I like completely out of it on morphine at that point. And then they did the best and they saved the leg. They then flew me from Camp Bastion to the capital, where we were waiting for a main plane. They got me on the plane, the RAF plane. We were flying everybody back from R&R. And then my heart stopped again on the plane, so they had to drag me off the plane. Literally, a nurse straddled me trying to bring me back. And then I had emergency blood donation from a Norwegian, literally in a corridor in the airport, to save my life. And then they flew me straight into Birmingham airport, and then straight into Birmingham, where I started the recovery phase.
How long had you been serving in the army at that point?
So I joined in '99. I did roughly 7 years. So that was on my first operational tour in Iraq.
Oh, you look so young there.
I look about 12, right? And then I did another operational tour in Iraq in 2006.
Yeah.
And then straight from Iraq, I was back in the UK maybe 4 months, and then I went to Afghanistan.
And is this the helmet that you were wearing on the day?
Yeah, so I don't know how I've managed to keep this, but what happened is I was wearing this, and all my equipment literally got put in a box and flown back to the UK, so there was quite a lot of equipment. And then it was literally sat in a storage room somewhere. And then when I was leaving, they literally just handed it to me and said, do you want to keep it? So I kept it. But they've upgraded these like 4 times since I've left the military. It just shows how limited the equipment was at the time.
So you come back to Birmingham, and what happens next?
Yeah, so I got injured the 11th of November 2007. I got flown directly into Birmingham Hospital, where I had emergency operations to try and save my life and to save my leg. Just before bonfire now, around that time, I want to say it was. And then Operation Save My Life, they realised that my leg was too badly damaged, all the nerves had been killed predominantly. So then I opted for an amputation. It was a really interesting conversation. They came in the morning and said, we think you can save a leg. And then 7 p.m. at night, I had to make a decision to have it amputated. As soon as the leg was taken, I was then pretty much free to do what I needed to do, so I could get around in a wheelchair, crutches. Within 6 months of losing my leg, I'd done Headley Court, back in Birmingham, prosthetics and all that sort of stuff. But within a 6 month period, I was back in regiment trying to go back to Afghanistan for the second time and doing all the training and stuff.
Yeah.
But it came very clear very, very quickly that even though my body had recovered pretty quick, the brain hadn't. And I think that for me was when I realised I needed more therapy on that side.
And how do you think you were treated when you look back?
The help was there, but it was very limited, especially government help was very, very limited. Help for Heroes was set up around that stage, and other local charities were set up, where charities were taking the gap from government, really. What I have found is help is 10 times better than it was, say, in 2003 to 2006 under the Labour government. Got a lot better. It could get better, but it was 10 times better than it was when I first got injured.
What's got better over the last few years?
So the help and support that's available to families, I think that's something that was always neglected. They always concentrated on the soldier, but actually the wives, the children.
Because you're married, you've got kids.
Yeah, I didn't have a wife at the time, but I had lots of colleagues that did. Is people that get injured, there's a high possibility they're going to get divorced, so they're going to end up going down drugs, alcohol, depression, PTSD, and that support wasn't in place. Fixing the soldier, they were always really good at. Prosthetics really good at mending you, but then not mending the brain and not having that support afterwards. When you do leave the Ministry of Defence, when you leave the army, for myself, that extra support afterwards kind of ceased to be immediately. So for somebody like me that had Headley Court, that was the best prosthetic department in the country, the next day I leave the military, I'm responsible by the NHS, and that service is very poor. The biggest issue for injured servicemen that leave the army are ones that leave with non-injuries. So they end up with PTSD further down the line, or they end up with drugs and alcohol dependency further down the line, because there's no financial assistance for them. So when they drop off hard. For people like me.
And that's where we need the NHS and good charities to step up.
Yeah, but soldiers don't like asking for help, and I think that's the biggest issue. It's that man up. And that's what soldiers have always done, man up, and actually, no, it's not man up, go and get help. The amount of injured servicemen, and I say injured servicemen, I mean PTSD, combat stress, fatigue, everything in between, is suicide rate is high in veterans. And that's because I didn't realise I had a mental health issue until a few years ago, when it got really bad for me. But you don't know, everybody else realises, but you don't know. So I've got so many good friends at the moment that are classed as non-injured personnel, but are probably more injured than me.
Yeah.
But I've got a leg missing, so it's obvious that I'm injured. However, for them that have gone in for normal jobs afterwards, that are really, really struggling.
And what can we do to help them?
There's some really good charities out there. So you've got SAFA, that's a really good charity. You've got Blesma, charity that I've worked with over the years, and they do a really good job. They help servicemen, they save lives. What we do need to do is make sure there's more mental health support there. People like me that have lost legs and my friends that have lost limbs, we're all right to a certain extent, but the mental health support just isn't there at the moment.
Johnny, you've completely rebuilt your life. You're married, you've got beautiful kids, you've got a busy life. You're incredibly active, aren't you? I mean, you seem to wear through more of your prosthetic legs than anyone I've ever met. So how have you done it? What's the trick?
The day before I got injured, I was returning rounds with the Taliban. The next day they blew me up. Like, this was proper warfighting. And I was very, very lucky that I've had charities like Blesma, SAFA, I tried to fund this local charity from here, helping and supporting. But I never realised that I had mental health issues until I got really, really poorly one day, and sadly I nearly committed suicide. And it's really, really heartbreaking to know that there's people going through the same. Now, I was lucky, I had lots and lots of support around me, and because of the support that I got, I realised that people need the help at the right time.
We've got to do right by servicemen and women like Johno. They deserve the best support. And there are fantastic charities out there who are helping to ensure that we really look after our veterans and their families to the best possible standard. For this reason, I've set myself a challenge to raise awareness of and raise funds for our heroes. On Sunday, the 27th of April, I'll be running the London Marathon. I'm running for the Soldiers and Sailors Families Association, a charity that supports our forces and their families. I've seen the great work that they've done for my constituents. Our veterans are the best of us. They've dedicated their lives to our country and they deserve the best support. And whilst we've made so much progress in recent years, there's still more that we can do for them and their families.
And in particular, I'm supporting veterans from Northern Ireland and who served in Northern Ireland, because that generation of servicemen and women who served during the Troubles deserve our support and recognition. Getting fit and healthy and shedding a few pounds along the way over the course of the last few years has been really rewarding, and taking up running has been a big part of that journey for me. Nonetheless, this is going to be a real challenge. I know times are tough, but if you've got some change, please donate to me and this fantastic charity by clicking on the link below. And if you see me struggling around London, give me a wave.